faithfully sharing value and interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, I'm Sally, Talking Books here. Today, I'll interpret for you a book called Excuse Me, Mr. Plant. The subtitle of Mr. Plant is They Are Ancient, Yet Actually Very Advanced. In many people's impressions, plants seem like a lower life form than humans. They can't move freely, are eaten by animals, and are manipulated by humans at will. But if you can deeply understand plants like the author of this book, you'll inevitably blurt out, "Excuse me, excuse me." Plants have no brain and are firmly rooted to the ground, yet they possess movement and memory abilities. Plants appear passive, but they've evolved sophisticated ways to manipulate the behavior of animals and humans. And in fields like architecture and robotics, plants provide us with a lot of inspiration. The author of this book is Stefano Mancuso, an associate professor in the Department of Environmental and Agricultural Production Sciences at the University of Florence in Italy, and also the director of the International Laboratory of Plant Neurobiology at the university. He's also one of the founding members of the International Society for Plant Signaling and Behavior, and was named one of the 20 Italians who changed public life by the Italian newspaper La Repubblica for his outstanding research in botany. In 2013, the New Yorker magazine listed the author of this book in the World Changers list. Mancuso believes we deeply misunderstand plants. They are ancient yet advanced, so in this book, Excuse Me, Mr. Plant, he reveals the unknown mysteries of plants. The book has 9 chapters. Mancuso uses anthropomorphic methods to narrate a series of interesting cases about plants. He starts from plants' memory abilities and goes all the way to their survival strategies and ways of life that differ from humans. Mancuso believes that plants' extraordinary survival strategies can provide solutions to many of humanity's current technological problems. On the path to forging the future, humans must learn from plants. Next, I'll explain using 3 questions. The main content of the book. First, how plants remember, move, and mimic like humans. Second, what are plants? Survival strategies different from humans. Third, what can humans learn from plants? First, let's talk about the book's first question. How plants remember, move, and mimic like humans. Speaking of memory, movement, and mimicry abilities, we generally consider these abilities to be unique to creatures with brains, such as humans or animals. But the author of this book, Mancuso, tells us that brainless plants actually possess these abilities too. Let's first talk about memory ability. In the 18th century, the famous French evolutionary biologist Lamarck studied the memory abilities of plants. He researched a common sensitive plant we know as the mimosa. The results showed that if the mimosa is repeatedly subjected to the same stimulus in the same environment, after a certain number of times, its leaves would no longer react, indicating that the mimosa remembered it as a harmless stimulus and stopped closing its leaves. Lamarck's student Desfontaines conducted further research on the mimosa. He placed the mimosa on the back seat of a carriage and had the coachman drive around. They circled Paris once, and the carriage was very bumpy. Desfontaines discovered that although the mimosas initially closed their leaves due to the bumpiness, they soon spread their leaves again, regardless of whether the bumpiness increased. Desfontaines believed that the mimosa had formed a habit. In 2013, Australian scientist Monica Galliano conducted further research on the mimosa. She repeatedly dropped pots containing mimosa plants from a height of 10 centimeters, a height that wouldn't harm the plants. At first, the mimosa would close its leaves, but when it realized there was no danger, it stopped closing them. Gagliano found that the mimosa would remember this falling sensation for up to 40 days, meaning that even after 40 days, dropping the mimosa from 10 centimeters high wouldn't cause it to close its leaves. How do plants without brains remember the sensation of falling? Research has found that some plant cells contain non-coding DNA, which doesn't represent the plant's genetic traits, and was once considered junk DNA, but they have another function, recording environmental changes The reason mimosas remember the falling sensation is precisely because they record information about environmental changes by altering non-coding DNA, which research shows allows the mimosa to respond accordingly. Oh. Some plants' memories can even be genetically inherited. In 2016, American scientist Carissa Santambrogio published her research on the RNA of spring flowering plants in the journal Cell Research. RNA is also a type of genetic material. In these plants' RNA, there's a sequence called COLR, whose main task is to record how much time has passed since the onset of severe cold. If this RNA sequence is removed from spring flowering plants, it's like erasing their memory, and the plants can't bloom anymore. Besides memory, plants can also move like animals. Humans or animals rely on muscle contraction to achieve movement. Plants don't have muscles, yet they can still move. For example, the mimosa closing its leaves and the Venus flytrap catching insects, which we mentioned earlier, are both plant movements. The secret to plant movement is the power of water. Plants rely on the simple process of liquid or gaseous water transport to perform active movements. Simply put, the osmosis of water across cell membranes directly generates force. When the concentration of liquid inside the cell is greater than outside, water enters the cell, and the large volume of liquid exerts pressure on the cell wall, thus changing the plant's shape. By controlling the concentration of their cell sap, plants can perform various complex actions. Apart from active movements, plants' dead cells can also perform complex and intricate movements. We call this passive movement. For example, pine cones have overlapping woody scales on the outside, enclosing pine seeds. Pine cones that have fallen to the ground, although the cells of the woody scales are dead, changes in external moisture can still alter the shape of their cell walls, causing them to move. When the environment is dry, the woody scales open, revealing the seeds hidden inside. And when the environment is humid, its woody scales close. This is because in humid or rainy weather, seeds become heavier when dampened, making it hard for them to roll far enough from the parent plant. And therefore, to spread the seeds as far as possible, the woody scales open only when the air is dry. Another plant, the fruits of crane's bill or erodium, are even more amazing. Their fruits look like large-headed pins clustered together. The tips of these pins are spiral-shaped, so after detaching from the parent, they easily stick to the fur of passing animals and travel along for a while. If they fall to the ground, their spiral shape allows them to roll continuously in the wind. If they encounter a crack in the ground, the spiral tip firmly lodges into it, and at that moment, the seed shoots into the crack to take root and sprout. Third, let's discuss plants' mimicry abilities. Here we'll talk about the ultimate shapeshifter in the plant world. To call Boquilla vine a chameleon among plants is no exaggeration at all. Boquilla vine is a species that lives in southern South America, climbing by twining around other trees, known as host plants. Its leaves are generally oval-shaped, and it produces edible berries, seeming nothing special at first glance. But Spanish botanist Ernesto Giannoli discovered something different about this plant. One day in 2013, Giannoli was observing plants in the South American woods when she noticed a bush with odd-looking leaves. Upon closer inspection, those weren't the bush's leaves at all, but Boquilla vine leaves. Giannoli then observed other Boquilla vines nearby and found distinct leaf shapes on those twining around different plants. It turns out Boquilla vine leaves can change size, shape, color, orientation, and even vein patterns. When the same vine spans between different trees, its leaves transform to mimic the host plant's foliage, even when the host tree's leaves differ tenfold in size. Scientists believe Boquilla vine developed this mimicry for survival. Boquilla vines have fewer leaves than their host plants. When pests attack, their leaves blend among the host's foliage, reducing their chance of being eaten. So how does Boquilla vine recognize host plant leaves? One theory suggests they possess vision like humans. As early as 1905, German botanist Gottlieb Haberhand discovered some plants have epidermal cells with convex lens structures, identical to simple animal eyes. The book's author boldly speculates Bequia vine likely uses similar eye structures to observe and mimic nearby leaves within short time frames. In contrast, a weed called rye took millennia to mimic wheat's form before evolving into a crop. 11,600 years ago, when wheat farming began in the Middle East, farmers spent considerable time removing invasive rye that hindered wheat seedlings. Although rye is a close relative of wheat, it doesn't produce many seeds. But rye wasn't content to remain a weed forever. They not only evolved to resemble wheat plants more closely, but their fruits also grew plumper, gradually approaching the size of wheat grains. By around 3,000 years ago, rye officially became a cultivated crop. All right, we've now covered the book's first question. Like animals, plants possess memory, movement, and mimicry abilities. These are similar capabilities to what animals have. But in reality, plants and animals are quite different. Animals evolve quickly, plants slowly. Animals consume, plants produce. Animals use oxygen, plants absorb carbon dioxide, etc. In this context, to survive better, plants evolved survival strategies distinct from animals. Next, let's discuss the book's second question. What different survival strategies do plants have compared to animals or humans? This manifests mainly in three aspects. First, decentralized reproduction. Second, decentralized decision-making. And third, forging unique paths in cooperation. Let's first explore how plants decentralize their reproductive capabilities. Whether plants, humans, or animals all face various disasters.
For example, when fire breaks out, the brain tells humans or animals to flee immediately.
Plants, lacking brains and unable to escape, adopt a different strategy, decentralizing their reproductive ability.
Plants aren't like animals, where each organ is highly specialized.
They lack single organs like brains, hearts, or livers responsible for major bodily functions, instead distributing functions throughout their structure. Thus, plants' reproductive functions are also decentralized. Remove an animal's reproductive system, and it can't reproduce naturally. But remove a plant's reproductive organs, and most plants can still reproduce. This is because most plants can reproduce sexually through flowers and seeds, but also asexually through vegetative parts like roots, stems, and leaves. In daily life, propagation by cuttings uses branches and leaves for asexual reproduction. As the ancient poem says, wildfires cannot burn them all. With spring breeze they revive, meaning grasses use roots for asexual reproduction. Plants not only decentralize reproduction, but also decentralize decision-making. For individual humans or animals, the brain is the command center issuing all decisions, but a plant individual differs. It delegates decision-making to various body parts for collective choices. Taking the plant's root system as an example, it's one of the most vital parts. Root tips act as the vanguard, constantly reaching out in all directions. In just 1 cubic centimeter of forest soil, there are thousands of root tips. A single rye plant can grow hundreds of millions of root tips, and a large tree's root tips exceed 10 billion. These countless root tips collectively decide where it's easier to obtain water and nutrients, based on gathered information. For the direction of root growth, humans also frequently use collective decision-making. As the saying goes, 3 cobblers with their wits combined surpass Juge Lane, meaning collective decision-making generally beats individual decisions. A German research report proved the advantages of collective decision-making. This study had doctors diagnose breast cancer using X-rays and found even the best doctors had a 20% error rate. If dozens of ordinary doctors vote on the diagnosis, the accuracy rate surpasses that of the best doctor. Plant individuals choose better environments through collective decision-making by their various parts. The third survival strategy of plants is to forge unique paths in cooperation. Plants can't move from their sprouting spots using their own strength, so they have to cooperate with animals. Most commonly, plants provide tasty, nutritious nectar to pollinators and delicious fruits to birds to ask them to carry seeds far away. On the surface, plant-animal cooperation seems equal and mutually beneficial, but plants actually dominate it. Insects gather nectar to help pollinate flowers because most animals love sweet things. But nectar contains not just sugar but hundreds of other chemicals. Some substances can control animals' nervous systems, regulate neural excitability, and thus manipulate their behavior. For example, some plants' nectar contains caffeine, nicotine, etc., which can addict animals. Although humans don't usually consume nectar directly, they still can't escape plants' control. Some plants, like wheat, rice, and corn, provide food to humans in exchange for careful care and large-scale cultivation.
Other plants, like chili peppers, use pain to manipulate humans.
Chili peppers originated in America and have been cultivated for over 8,000 years. It also contains a substance called capsaicin that makes people feel spicy heat. Capsaicin is an alkaloid that activates a receptor called TRPV1 in human nerve endings when contacted, sending signals to the brain. Since TRPV1 is a pain receptor, spiciness is actually a form of pain perception for humans. Before humans ate chili peppers, birds primarily spread their seeds. Birds lack TRPV1 receptors, so they don't feel spiciness. They only sense the tender juiciness of the pepper flesh. The pain from TRPV1 receptors serves as a warning to humans. Just like accidentally touching red-hot iron or drinking scalding soup causes pain, signaling danger to the body, so you instinctively pull away, then why can't 1/3 of the world's population live without chili peppers? American psychologist Paul Rosen proposed the benign masochism theory, suggesting some brains enjoy this sense of danger. For these people, eating chili peppers feels like riding a roller coaster. The body senses danger. But on another level, they know there's no real risk, so they don't stop the experience. After repeated exposure, initial discomfort turns into pleasure. When eating peppers, the brain releases endorphins. This neurotransmitter helps endure pain. Similar to morphine, it reduces discomfort and creates addiction to the satisfaction. This is called endorphin dependence. Just like chili lovers, long-distance runners also experience this.
They don't find the long track torturous.
After prolonged, strenuous exercise, they reach an extremely pleasant mental state filled with satisfaction. The book's author believes capsaicin creates dependency through endorphin reward mechanisms. This is precisely the brilliance of chili peppers as plants. While circuses use food rewards to make animals perform, chili peppers make humans addict themselves voluntarily. Far more ingenious than the circus approach. All right, we've now covered the book's second question, plants' decentralized reproduction and decision-making. And by forging unique paths in cooperation, they've explored a distinct survival strategy. Since plants have so many unique traits, what can we learn from them? Next, let's discuss the book's third question. Currently, we've learned from plants in 3 fields. They are architecture, freshwater resource acquisition, and biomimetic robotics. First, how does architecture learn from plants? The first instance of humans learning from plants in architecture was at the First World Expo in 1851, an unprecedented grand event. Host city London decided to build a magnificent structure in Hyde Park to welcome global representatives and millions of visitors. At the time, 245 design proposals from European architects were rejected because many protested the building would damage Hyde Park's plants. Suddenly, only months remained until opening. Designing and constructing an outstanding building in such short time seemed impossible.
It appeared Britain would embarrass itself before the world.
Just then, 4 British experts saved the London World Expo by recalling the Amazonian giant water lily. The giant water lily had only been brought to Britain from South America in the early 19th century. Unlike ordinary lotuses, their leaves are enormous, over 1 meter across, and very light, floating on water while supporting an adult's weight. What makes the giant water lily's leaves so sturdy? The answer lies in the crisscrossing veins on the leaf's underside, forming a lightweight skeleton with excellent load-bearing capacity. Mimicking this, The British built the Crystal Palace in 4 months. The Crystal Palace's structure was simple, made of steel and glass. Having just completed the Industrial Revolution, Britain could quickly produce enough steel and glass. With simple assembly, they created a vast, sturdy exhibition hall with a wide span like the water lily leaf. Its arched glass roof brilliantly lit and supported by a grid, like steel frame, resembling the lily's veins. Lightweight yet strong, with a 95-meter span, it housed all exhibitors while preserving park trees. These trees could continue thriving under the transparent glass roof. After the World Expo ended, the Crystal Palace was easily dismantled, the steel and glass repurposed, making it highly eco-friendly. Since then, many iconic structures have adopted this water lily-inspired design. Demonstrations include Terminal 5 at JFK Airport in the US and Rome's Palazzo della Sport in Italy. Belgian architect Vincent Caillebotte even mimicked water lily leaves to design Lilypad Island, a floating futuristic habitat for 50,000 people. Second, let's explore how we learn from plants for freshwater acquisition. Though Earth seems water-covered, over 97% is saltwater.
With global population growth, efficient freshwater access has become critical.
In arid regions especially, plants offer ingenious solutions. How do cacti obtain water in parched deserts? By harvesting atmosphere moisture. Their spines, modified branches, use thick ones for defense and fuzzy ones to absorb water vapor. When night temperatures drop, airborne vapor condenses into droplets. In deserts with scarce humidity, these microdroplets cling to fuzzy spines, condensing internally into storable water reserves. Similarly, Namibia's Welwitschia plant extracts moisture through its leaves. Its roots, nearly vestigial, leaves stretch 5 meters long, extraordinary hydrators. Surviving millennia in extreme aridity, Welwitschia and cacti inspired new technology. Italian design. Arturo Vittori built Waka water towers across Ethiopian deserts, using condensation to harvest airborne freshwater. Waka, meaning giant fig tree, in Ethiopian. Each 9-meter tower combines leaf-bundled frames with orange nylon polypropylene mush cores. They serve a filtering function. When nighttime temperatures drop, condensed droplets flow down the plastic mesh to collect in a basin at the tower's base. Building one costs about $550 and takes just a week. Each Waka tower collects 100 liters of clean drinking water daily, enough for a small village. Boston. For third, let's explore plant-inspired innovations in biomimetic robotics. Robots are now ubiquitous: cleaning bots, underwater drones, bomb disposal units, etc. Most mimic humans with central processors acting as brains, but scientists are creating plant-like robots with decentralized decision-making for harsh environments.
Simpler than traditional robots, they eliminate individual processors, cutting costs while enabling vast deployment.
Examples include bots handling radioactivity, detecting landmines, prospecting minerals, or rehabilitating soil. The author's lab develops Mars-bound plant robots, each just 10 centimeters tall. Released on Mars, they'll penetrate soil like root tips. Roots explore subsurface while above-ground components photosynthesize for energy. Deploying thousands would let them spread across Mars like roots, covering every corner. Failures in harsh zones won't compromise others, ensuring mission continuity. We've covered the third question. Mimicking plants has advanced architecture, water harvesting, and biomimetic robotics. This concludes the core content of Excuse Me, Mr. Plant. As Earth's oldest life form, plants appeared 2.5 billion years ago. Compared to humanity's mere million-year evolution, plants' billion-year journey grants profound wisdom. We haven't fully understood their uniqueness yet. On average, 2,000 new plant species are discovered every year. With patient exploration, we'll uncover even more botanical treasures. All right, Poetic Realm, that concludes our interpretation of Mr. Plant for you. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time!